Thai-Burma Railway, dubbed the Railway of Death, was a 415-kilometer long railway line built by prisoners of war in World War II. It runs from Thambiuzayat in Burma to Non Pladuk in Thailand. The railway was built by the Japanese in order to bypass the sea routes that were made vulnerable in the Battle of the Coral Sea and the Battle of Midway. The railway at either end began with gentle landscapes, before entering into mountainous and rugged jungles on the border. When the railway reached Whampoa, approximately 112 kilometers from the Thai terminus, it was met with jagged limestone hills and various streams and gullies. Built between Thailand and Burma, the railway also consisted of 688 bridges, over 60 stations, and various cuttings where the hills were too steep for the steam trains. The railway construction began at the Thai end on the 22nd of June 1942 and at roughly the same time for the Burmese end. The two lines of the railway met on the 17th of October 1943, 18 kilometers south of Three Pagodas Pass. The obvious aggressor in the building of the Thai-Burma Railway was the Japanese. They used cruel techniques to coerce the prisoners of war into building the railway. These methods used by the Japanese included making the prisoners of war work for long hours, despite giving them insufficient food and medical supplies, threatening the prisoners with weapons such as the Type 38 and the Type 99 rifles, executing any disobedient prisoners, and the intimidation and beating of workers. The Japanese utilized the forced slave labor of 180,000 Asian laborers and 60,000 Allied prisoners of war. The prisoners of war were forced to construct the railway under conditions that could only be described as horrific. They were underfed and forced to work for up to 18 hours a day without breaks, and were often malnourished. The most common causes of death were from chloria, dysentery, starvation, and exhaustion. The railway was built with fairly simple materials, such as timber for the sleepers as well as supports and iron for the rail itself. Most of the materials were obtained from the dismantled Federated Malay States Railway and were laboriously carried to the railway location.
A devastating example of atrocities committed by the Japanese is Hellfire Pass. Hellfire Pass, known by the Japanese as Konyu Cutting, was the name of the deepest and longest railway cutting on the Thai-Burma Railway. This cutting was especially infamous for the harsh conditions and heavy loss of life suffered by the workers. The pass was so named because of the sight of the worn-out prisoners labouring at night under torchlight, resembling a scene from hell. Hellfire Pass is located in the Tenasserim Hills of Thailand and was one of the most difficult sections of the line to build. It was the largest rock cutting on the entire railway and took almost 6 weeks to build, with the prisoners of war working up to 18 hours a day. To add to the horrific conditions of the construction, 69 men were beaten to death by the Japanese guards, and many other prisoners died of exhaustion and disease. To increase the pace of work, Japanese engineers implemented the infamous Speedo period from April to August 1943. This period meant that a prisoner now had to drill up to 3 meters into solid rock, whereas previously 1 meter would have been expected. Work hours were also extended during the period. If the pace of work was still slow, the Japanese would then resort to physical punishment. Making the conditions much worse were the monsoonal rains, which turned work sites into flood zones. The precise number of dead Australians is unknown, but one returned serviceman said this: "The Thai-Burma Railway was the common and dominant experience of Australian prisoners of war. It distorted or ended the lives of over half the Australian prisoners of the Japanese." A significant figure of Australian heroism is Sir Edward Dunlop. He was regarded as one of the most inspirational military leaders, even when being held captive in Burma. Edward Dunlop was a courageous doctor and a compassionate leader, and he restored the morale of the prisoners in the camps. He defied the Japanese and gave hope to the sick. In the words of his men, he was a lighthouse of sanity in a universe of madness and suffering.
Despite the immense amount of human labor put into the railway, It was later destroyed and did not have a significant impact on the war. However, the construction of the railway and the improper treatment of the prisoners of war was considered a war crime and allowed the international community insights into how Allied prisoners of war were being treated in Japanese camps. Out of the 180,000 Asian prisoners, 90,000 died and over 12,000 of the 60,000 Allied prisoners of war died. During the war, Allied bombings destroyed most of the railway, but later on most of it was restored, and a large portion of the railway is still in use today.